Hi, I'm Lisa Filia, your confidence coach for your career. We are talking about how to know when you're ready to ask for what you want. And we're talking about this because I often have clients who they have this conversation that they want to have. It might be with their boss or a colleague. It might be with a significant other or a child or a family member. But there's this conversation that they want to have, but they don't know if they're ready yet to have it. They're not quite sure how to go about it. They don't really know whether it's the time, and so they're not saying anything, and it's just kind of weighing on them. So we're going to talk about in this video how to know when you're ready to have that conversation. And it boils down to knowing when you're able to shift from an us them type of mentality about the conversation into an us conversation. So I'm going to define what those are, but first I want to say the reason we want to do this is because it sets us up for an open dialogue and a collaborative dialogue, as opposed to feeling like you're trying to get what you want and you have to word it in just the right way, and you're all calculating the way to say it and how to phrase it and get the right time. So it takes some of that pressure off, and makes it more open, genuine, and collaborative in its spirit. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, here's what I often see when my clients aren't sure how to have a conversation. It's because they're thinking about it in terms of what they're wanting. They're thinking about what they're hoping to get from the conversation. They're thinking about how it might come across. So this is them knowing what they want, not sure how to tell this other person. And so they start to get calculative. They start to analyze in their mind what they think the best way to phrase it is. They start to think about the specific words and then the timing. Things like, oh, well, I can't do it on Tuesdays because they always talk to so and so that day and they're never in a good mood. Or I can't do it on a Friday because their mind's already on the weekend. I can't do it on a Monday because it's the beginning of the week. I can't ask them to have this conversation through an email because doing it in written form is just not personal enough. I can't ask them to have this conversation over the phone because that's too intrusive on their schedule. They have all these rules about it, and they're trying to calculate the best way to go about it. And the reason we're doing that is because we're not focused on the point of the conversation. We're not focused on it from a sense of camaraderie. And that is the key here. When we can realize that what we're bringing up is neutral, it's just a conversation that you want to have, it's neutral, it's not good or bad, it takes the pressure off and it allows us to think from a cleaner space. And what I mean by this is, let's say that you want a promotion, and so you want to have a conversation about how to get a salary raise or that promotion. So you get all nervous potentially because you don't feel like you know how to have it, when to have it, the way to have it. So what we need to do is first realize that there's no need to put all this pressure on this conversation because it's just a conversation. Having a conversation about getting a raise is just a neutral situation. It's not a good conversation or a bad conversation. It's just a conversation. But what happens is when you think about it as this big deal or as something you want that your boss is going to resist, that's when it starts to feel bigger than it needs to, and that's when it starts to get hard to actually know how to have the conversation. So the first step is neutralizing whatever the topic is. It's just neutral. You're just going to talk about how you want to go about getting this raise, or the new way you want to approach training for your dog, or whatever this conversation is, having another kid or another dog. Whatever this conversation is, it's just a neutral conversation. Once you see it that way, then you're able to show up differently because you're no longer thinking it's you trying to get something. It's you having a dialogue with this person, and through that conversation, you guys can come to the next step or the decision. And so you've neutralized the topic. You can still have a want, but you no longer are like seeing the conversation itself as good or bad. What this means then is when we know that the conversation itself is neutral, that means how the other person interprets this conversation is also able to be anything. So instead of seeing this conversation for wanting a raise as, oh no, my boss isn't going to like this, it could be, my boss has been waiting to have this conversation. Or my boss will be excited to give me this opportunity and see how it can help the company. Or whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be that you want it and your boss doesn't. It might be that you want it and your boss doesn't. But what you can realize is that your boss has the opportunity to think about it in either way. You can't decide or manipulate or control or determine how that other person sees it. But what you can do is realize they could see it either way. And that helps you to show up from a more open space where they could be thinking whatever they want about it. And you're here to present why you're wanting it in a certain way, and they can choose what they want to make that mean. No longer do you have to feel like you're the one who has to control that aspect. And so once you realize this, so we've neutralized the conversation, and now we've had an approach where we see that our person we're talking to could see it in any way, and it's not up to us to decide, it's up to them. What this means is now we can refocus just on us. And we can ask ourselves, why do I want this? And why do I think this would be important for me to ask? And why do I think this other person could get something out of this too? What you're doing is you're helping them to see that you've thought about it, and you see not only how it could help you, but also how it might be able to help them. And if you notice that some resistance is coming up for you, it's because you don't actually believe that it could help the other person. And so you need to help yourself and sell yourself on the idea that it could actually help the other person. Because it really could. It's just that conversation itself is neutral. It could go either way. Anything we experience in life, we could decide to see as good or bad. Anything. And so you being ready to have that conversation and wanting that to happen, you can position it and let yourself see how this conversation could be helpful for you and the other person. And you can ask and come to that conversation from that collaborative space, that this isn't you trying to get something out of them. It's you and them coming together and talking about how can we find a way to support each other in this. So now what we've done is we've talked about neutralizing the conversation, not trying to control what the other person thinks, refocusing on what we want to think, and then the fourth piece then is now we come from a place of collaboration, of coming together and saying, hey, this is what I'm thinking, this is why I want it, this is why I think it could help you. What do you think? What's coming up for you? And you can come from this collaborative dialogue of supporting each other and helping each other. That will be able to take some of the pressure off the conversation and also allow it to be less of a combative conflict and more of an open opportunity to have a clean, clear discussion and figure out the way forward. All right, so that is what I have for you. If you have a specific conversation coming up, or you're just wondering how to really use this and other coaching tools to help yourself with conversations you have coming up, then let's schedule a consultation. It's a free call, 60 minutes, all about you. You also don't have to have anything in mind to come to this conversation. You can just come and I'll take you through a guided process, and you'll leave with some clear takeaways and next steps that you can apply to your life and your career. You can sign up for this call by going to www.lisaphilia.com/schedule. That's LISAPHILYAW.com/schedule. All right, I will see you on the call. Bye.